Section 1. The World That Should Not Work. There is a town somewhere between a dream and a television broadcast. It sits on top of photographs of real streets, real buildings, real grass, and real asphalt. And into those photographs, someone placed a family of cats, a talking goldfish, a rainbow, a piece of toast, a ghost, a cloud with anger issues, and a balloon, who is perhaps the nicest person in the entire universe. And the whole thing should not work. It should be chaos, a visual disaster, a narrative car crash, a children's show so internally contradictory that it falls apart at the seams within minutes of starting. And yet something about it is not just coherent, but deeply, quietly, extraordinarily beautiful. The Amazing World of Gumball ran for 6 seasons on Cartoon Network, producing 240 episodes across roughly a decade. It was created by a man named Ben Bockley, who had spent years designing characters for advertising pitches that nobody ever picked. Characters that got rejected, shelved, discarded, forgotten. And when he was given the chance to make his own show, he did something that no one had ever really done before. He took all those unwanted, unloved, rejected characters and gave them a home. He put them all in one place. He built Elmore around the discarded, and he made it beautiful. That origin story matters more than almost anything else when you are trying to understand what this show is actually doing, what it is actually saying, and why so many of the things buried beneath its comedy are so genuinely unsettling when you stop laughing long enough to look at them. Tonight we are going to do exactly that. We are going to go through 200 mysteries, unanswered questions, dark implications, hidden details, background secrets, unresolved threads, and genuinely strange things that the Amazing World of Gumball scattered across its 6 seasons and revival series like breadcrumbs for whoever was paying close enough attention. This is not a list of creepypasta nonsense. This is not a collection of shock value theories designed to make a children's show sound scarier than it is. This is a careful, patient, thorough examination of the things the show actually tells you, the things it implies, and the things it leaves deliberately blank, because blank spaces in a show this thoughtful are never accidental. Get comfortable. Pull something warm around you. Let the room get a little quieter. Mystery number 1 begins where everything in Elmore begins. With the simple, staggering fact that this world exists at all. Elmore is not a normal cartoon setting. The backgrounds are photographs of real locations, primarily from around London and other parts of England, where the show was produced at Cartoon Network Development Studio Europe. Real roads, real buildings, real skies photographed on real days, sometimes overcast, sometimes bright. And onto these real places, the show layered characters rendered in completely different animation styles. Gumball is a flat, traditionally drawn 2D character. Darwin is mostly 2D but occasionally shifts into 3D. Tina Rex is a full CGI model. The Robinsons, Gumball's neighbors, are puppet-like figures that move with a different physical quality than anything around them. Sussy is an actual human chin filmed upside down with googly eyes attached. The show does not apologize for this visual incoherence. It does not attempt to smooth it out or explain it. It just exists, and you either accept it or you do not. Mystery number 2. Why does this work? The answer, if you sit with it long enough, is that it works because it is honest. Real life does not have a consistent visual style. The world is full of things that do not match each other. People who do not fit their surroundings, creatures rendered in entirely different aesthetic languages occupying the same physical spaces. Elmore looks chaotic because the real world is chaotic. The mixed media presentation is not a gimmick, it is a philosophy. Mystery number 3. The Void. The show introduced the Void in Season 3 in an episode called The Void. A dimension made of television static where the universe sends everything it has decided is a mistake. Dated fads, failed products, characters who were not interesting enough to justify their continued existence. This is not a fan theory. This is not an extrapolation or an implication. The show tells you this directly, in plain dialogue, without flinching. The universe has quality control. If you fail the standard, you are erased. Your family forgets you. Your friends forget you. You never existed. For a children's show, this is an extraordinary thing to put into the world. Mystery number 4. Who decides what counts as a mistake? The show never answers this. It presents the void's judgment as absolute and automatic, like a natural force. Things that are no longer culturally relevant, culturally relevant, get deleted. Things that are too boring get deleted. Things that do not have a clear narrative function get deleted. But there is no visible hand making these decisions, no God of Elmore, no committee. The universe itself simply sorts. And the things that do not sort cleanly vanish. Mystery number 5. If the universe can delete things retroactively and erase everyone's memory of them, how do we know Elmore itself has not been pruned? How do we know the Elmore we see is the first version, or even close to the original? The background photographs show a real, consistent physical world, but the characters on top of those backgrounds are endlessly malleable. What if Elmore has been revised dozens of times, with entire characters scrubbed out, entire storylines deleted, entire relationships wiped clean, and the version we are watching is just the current draft? Mystery number 6. Why do the main characters seem immune to the void? Gumball causes chaos on a level that by any reasonable standard should mark him as a mistake. He destroys property in almost every episode. He ruins events. He catastrophically misunderstands every social situation he encounters. And yet he persists. He is never erased. Is it because he is the protagonist and the universe protects protagonists? Or is it, as Rob eventually articulates, that his chaos is itself the thing keeping him safe? That being interesting is the shield against deletion, and Gumball is simply more interesting than anyone around him. Mystery number 7 is the one that launched 1,000 late-night Reddit threads. The show's creator, Ben Bacalé, was once asked directly whether the theory that everything in Elmore is a simulation is something he had considered. His response was simple and precise and absolutely maddening. He said he had his own theory, which he would not reveal. That is all he gave. No confirmation, no denial. Just the quiet acknowledgement that there is a theory, it is his, and you will not be hearing it. In a different show, this would be a throwaway PR answer. In a show that spent 6 seasons building meta-awareness directly into its narrative DNA, it lands differently. It lands like a door that has been left slightly open, just enough for the draft to reach you, but not enough to see through. Mystery number 8, the show's title. The Amazing World of Gumball. Not Gumball's Amazing World. Not the world of Gumball. The amazing world. The world is the subject. Gumball is incidental to it, a lens through which we see the world rather than the world's reason for existing. This may sound like a minor semantic point. It is not. Shows named after their protagonist center that protagonist as the thing that matters. Shows named after the world center the world itself. And the show, despite following Gumball as its main character, is fundamentally a show about the world. About what kind of place Elmore is, about the rules it operates by, about what it costs to live inside it. Mystery number 9. Where is Elmore geographically? The show is an American broadcast production created in England. The backgrounds are English. The school system looks vaguely American. The currency is never clearly established. There are no country borders referenced. There is no nation-state that contains Elmore. It simply exists. Isolated, self-contained, surrounded by a wider world that we only ever glimpse through references and implications. This isolation is not a budget decision. The show had the resources to establish geography if it wanted to. The isolation is deliberate. Elmore is not a place in the world. It is a world unto itself. Mystery number 10. What happens at the edge of Elmore? Characters occasionally reference driving somewhere, taking trips, leaving town temporarily. But we never see what is outside the immediate environs of Elmore. The camera never truly pulls back far enough to show us what lies beyond. In one episode, there is a shot from above, a high angle looking down at the town, and what surrounds it is darkness. Not the artistic darkness of a night sky with stars. Just darkness. The void already at the borders of the place these characters call home. If you are watching this late at night, wherever you are in the world, drop a comment and tell me the time and the place. I genuinely love knowing who stays up for these, and it would mean the world if you hit subscribe while you are there. Now let us keep going. Section 2. The Watt family and the weight they carry. The Watt family is the gravitational center of Elmore. Everything in the show orbits them. Every other character exists in some relationship to their presence, their chaos, their love, their dysfunction. And when you look at each member of that family closely enough, the comedy starts to develop fractures, and through those fractures, something much older and stranger and sadder starts to leak through. Mystery number 11, Gumball's real name. In an episode called The Name, the family discovers that Gumball's legal name was never actually Gumball. His legal name is Zach Watterson. Gumball was a nickname that became a permanent identifier, the name he answered to, the name everyone knew him by. But when the legal name surfaces, something happens. An alternate personality begins to emerge. Zach. Not Gumball. Zach, who is cool and confident and aggressive and strategically selfish and fundamentally lacking in the warmth and sweetness that defines everything we understand Gumball to be. The family has to go to court to legally change the name back to Gumball in order to prevent this alternate personality from consuming the one they know and love. Mystery number 12. What does this mean? The dark reading, and it is a reading the show strongly supports, yet is that Gumball is not the original personality. He is the override. The Zach personality existed first and was somehow replaced, or suppressed, or written over by the Gumball persona. The kind, bumbling, generous, chaotic, lovable character, who has been the protagonist of this show for 6 seasons, is a revision of the character who was there before. The show, in a quietly extraordinary moment of meta-awareness, is telling you that its own protagonist is a constructed identity that replaced an original one. That the Gumball we have been watching is, in a precise and literal sense, a character who was written over a person. Mystery number 13. Is this an accident or a design choice by the show's creators? The Amazing World of Gumball went through significant revisions in development. The original pitch, Baucale's first version, featured a black cat, not a blue one. The setting was different, the tone was different. The fundamental conception of what the show was had changed substantially by the time it reached screens. Gumball is, on a meta level, already a revision of an earlier character. The Zach storyline is the show acknowledging this about itself. The protagonist was redesigned, and the original version is still in there somewhere. Suppressed, but not gone. Mystery number 14. Darwin's origin. Darwin Watterson was a goldfish. Not a metaphorical goldfish, not a character who resembled a goldfish, but an actual goldfish in an actual bowl, the latest in a series of replacement goldfish because the previous ones had kept dying. He was a pet. He did not speak. He did not have legs. He did not have opinions or feelings or an attachment to his family in any form that could be described as love. And then, in the Origins 2-parter from Season 4, we learn what happened. The family was startled when he suddenly spoke, and in the chaos that followed, he was accidentally flushed down the toilet. He was swept through the sewers of Elmore, a small fish navigating a hostile infrastructure that was not built with fish in mind. And through that journey, he grew legs, developed lungs, learned to breathe air, found the capacity for speech and emotion and genuine moral reasoning. He crossed the city alone and found his way back to the family that had flushed him away. And the show's explanation for this transformation is simply love. Gumball loved Darwin so completely and refused so absolutely to give up on him that Darwin evolved to match that love. Mystery number 15. But what did Darwin actually become? He was a fish. Fish do not have moral frameworks. Fish do not experience loyalty or devotion or the kind of love that would motivate a dangerous solo journey across a city. Everything Darwin is, every quality that defines him, his warmth, his optimism, his extraordinary moral sensitivity, his absolute dedication to the people he loves, none of it came from within him. All of it was bestowed. The universe looked at a goldfish that a family loved and decided that goldfish needed to be a character, and it gave him the personality a supporting character in this particular narrative would require. Mystery number 16. Does that make Darwin's personality less real? This is the question the show never quite resolves, and it is a genuinely difficult one. Darwin behaves as though his emotions are real. He feels things deeply. He is hurt when dismissed, joyful when loved, angry when wronged, terrified when threatened. His responses to the world are authentic in the sense that they arise spontaneously and appear to genuinely drive his behavior. But if everything he is was assigned to him by a force outside his control, is that authenticity? Or is it very convincing programming? Mystery number 17, there are moments in the show where this question is not merely implicit. In an episode called The Puppets, which crossovers with the unsettling British series Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, Darwin is the one who gets controlled by a puppet. Taken over, and the puppet that controls him tells him directly that he is not really alive. He is just a character in a show, and Darwin's response is not confusion or skepticism or philosophical inquiry. It is terror. Pure, immediate, primal terror. Because on some level, the question the puppet is raising is one Darwin has already asked himself, quietly, in the spaces between episodes, and has been trying very hard not to answer. Mystery number 18. Nicole Watterson's combat abilities. Nicole can run faster than the speed of sound. She can generate energy beams. She can create earthquakes with her fists. She once destroyed an entire house in a fight. In the episode The Fury, she trades blasts with an opponent in sequences that would not look out of place in an anime intended for adults. These abilities are played for comedy because everything in this show is played for comedy, but the sheer scale of them creates a question the show never addresses. Where did these abilities come from? Why does a mother who works at a factory have the physical capabilities of a deity? Mystery number 19. The Choices. This is the episode that answers the question, at least partially, and it does it by being one of the most emotionally devastating half hours of animation ever produced for a children's audience. We see Nicole's life from adolescence forward. We meet her parents, Daniel and Mary, and we understand immediately that her childhood was not safe. Her father, Daniel Cynic, has a violent temper. Her mother is a perfectionist who demanded absolute excellence at all times and could not be satisfied by anything Nicole produced. They controlled her completely, pushing her toward a path she did not want, dismissing the choices she made, treating her own preferences and desires as obstacles to be overcome. Nicole trained in karate obsessively as a child. The show presents this as character background, a fun detail about the physically formidable mother. But when you understand the household she was escaping through those training sessions, the obsessive nature of that pursuit makes a different kind of sense. She was not training to be strong, she was training to survive. She was channeling the unbearable pressure of her home life into the one place where effort produced a result she could control, where she could be excellent on her own terms rather than on her parents' terms. Mystery number 20. Her parents did not attend her wedding. When Nicole chose Richard, when she chose love and gentleness in a future built around warmth rather than performance, her parents did not come. They decided that the life she was choosing did not meet their standards, and so they absented themselves from the moment their daughter began her own family. Let that rest for a moment. Mystery number 21. Nicole's rage. The show plays Nicole's temper as comedy because it is objectively extraordinary in its scale. But there is a pattern beneath the comedy that is easy to spot once you are looking for it. Nicole's rage is not random. It spikes whenever she feels that something she is responsible for might fall apart. Whenever someone she loves is threatened. Whenever the standards she holds herself to are challenged. And she is a woman whose nervous system was trained from childhood to treat everything as a potential crisis, for whom the absence of a problem to solve does not feel like peace, but like the unsettling quiet before something goes wrong. She does not know how to rest because resting was never safe. At home, at rest, trouble would find her, so she stays coiled, always prepared, always on the edge of explosive response. Mystery number 22. The perfectionism she absorbed from her mother and then tried to flee is still there. It is still running. It manifests in the standards she applies to her family, the intensity with which she pursues even minor goals, the way ordinary setbacks can trigger responses disproportionate to the actual stakes. She recognizes this in herself. But the show gives us glimpses of Nicole understanding that she is repeating patterns she hated in her parents and not being able to stop. Mystery number 23. Richard Watterson is, by the show's own explicit accounting, the laziest person in Elmore. And in the job, this laziness is revealed to be not merely a personal failing, but a cosmological necessity. Richard gets hired as a pizza delivery man. He begins to work, actually work, with purpose and productivity and genuine effort. And as he does, reality begins to tear apart. The sky fractures, buildings warp, the laws of physics start to degrade. Gumball and Darwin and Nicole have to race to get him fired before the fabric of existence collapses entirely. The show plays this as a joke about how fundamentally useless Richard is. But the implication is staggering. The universe has assigned Richard Watterson a role, and that role is to do nothing. His laziness is not a character flaw. It is a cosmic mandate. It is the universe's operating requirement. If he deviates from it, everything pays the price. Mystery number 24. Richard Watterson's backstory. His mother, Granny JoJo, is smotheringly overprotective to a degree that constitutes a kind of psychological suffocation. She would not let him do anything. She wrapped the world in protective padding and then put Richard inside it, cutting him off from risk, from consequence, from the basic developmental experiences that allow children to become functional adults. His father, Frankie Watterson, was a con artist who abandoned the family. That the two adult figures who were supposed to model what adulthood looks like either prevented him from accessing it or demonstrated that it was not worth trusting. Mystery number 25. And yet Richard is, by almost every metric, a genuinely wonderful father. He is present. He is emotionally available. He plays with his children with authentic enthusiasm rather than perform duty. He is the soft place in a family where Nicole's anxiety and the general chaos of Elmore could easily make everything feel hard and sharp and demanding. He gives the Watterson children something that neither he nor Nicole ever had growing up. A parent who is simply there, not demanding anything in return, not performing love as a transaction, just being warm and foolish and available. But the hero is an episode where Gumball and Darwin accidentally mock Richard for being useless, and he hears them. He is devastated. And the episode becomes about the boys realizing that Richard's uselessness, his constant presence, his willingness to be the butt of every joke, his cheerful acceptance of his own inadequacy, is not a failure. It is a gift. In a household where the pressure to perform is immense, Richard's gentleness makes it safe to fail. That is not a small thing. That is perhaps the most important thing. Mystery number 26. Anais Watterson. She is 4 years old. She speaks 4 languages. She understands advanced mathematics. She has the emotional intelligence of someone 3 times her age. And she is, if you watch the show carefully enough, the loneliest character in the entire cast. She is too young for her classmates emotionally, too advanced for children her own age intellectually, and too perceptive for the adults around her to fully appreciate. She exists in a gap between every available category, belonging nowhere completely, fitting in with no one entirely. Her attempts to form friendships are undermined by a combination of intensity and intellectual superiority that other children find overwhelming. She clings too hard because she knows how rarely she connects. Mystery number 27. There is a fan theory that Anais is the character most at risk from the void. Not because she is boring, she is the furthest thing from boring, but because she is aware. She notices things. She asks questions about the fundamental nature of the world she inhabits. She is 4 years old and she is asking about determinism. In the Oracle, after Banana Barbara's prophecy comes true, Anais looks directly at the camera and asks whether any of it would have happened if they had not seen the painting first. She is asking whether observation changes outcomes. She is asking whether free will exists, and she is asking it with the quiet urgency of someone for whom the answer genuinely matters. In a world where awareness is the most dangerous quality a character can have, Anais is sitting on an intellectual time bomb. Mystery number 28. Why did the Watterson family get a goldfish in the first place? The show tells us that Darwin was one of several replacement fish because the others kept dying. This means the family had a pattern of getting goldfish, failing to keep them alive, and replacing them. Darwin was not special among a group of equally cared-for pets. He was the latest in a series of animals that the family had not managed to keep alive. And yet he became the most important person in Gumball's life. the most important relationship in the entire show. A replacement goldfish who should have been as disposable as every goldfish before him became, through a journey through the sewers and a theory about love, an irreplaceable member of a family that did not know he was missing until the moment he was gone. Mystery number 29. Does the family grieve the fish that died before Darwin? The show does not address this, but it hangs there quietly in the background of every Darwin scene. There were others before him. They were equally unremarkable. They died and were replaced and were forgotten. Darwin survived. Yet Darwin evolved. Darwin became a person, and the ones before him are gone, unmourned, unnamed, part of the pattern the void erases without fanfare. Mystery number 30. The Watterson House. It is a yellow house on a residential street in Elmore. It has a basement. It has a distinctly ordinary suburban layout. And it has been the site of more catastrophic events than almost any location in the history of Cartoon Network. It has been invaded, transformed, nearly destroyed, rebuilt, transported through time, and subjected to physics violations that should have rendered it structurally uninhabitable. And every episode, it is fine. Every episode, it is just a yellow house on a street, waiting for the next disaster. The house is in many ways the perfect symbol for the Watterson family itself. It absorbs everything, it persists. It does not remember the catastrophes it has survived, and it does not carry them forward. It resets, like everything in Elmore resets, and it keeps being home. Section 3. The Void, the Signal, and the Rules that govern everything. If you want to understand the amazing world of Gumball at the level the show intends to be understood, you need to understand three things. You need to understand the Void. You need to understand the Signal. And you need to understand what the show means when it tells you that your right to exist is conditional. Mystery number 31. The Void, as the show establishes it, is not a place of punishment. It is a place of disposal. Characters are not sent there because they have done something wrong. They are sent there because the universe has decided they are a mistake. Molly, the character who is erased in the Void, did not do anything wrong. She was simply too uninteresting to justify continued existence. Her personality was not offensive or dangerous or disruptive. It was merely unremarkable. And being unremarkable in Elmore carries a death sentence. Mystery number 32. The Void erases memory. It does not just remove the person, it removes the record of the person from everyone who ever knew them. When Gumball and Darwin discover that Molly has vanished, they can barely remember her. She is not clearly gone to them. She is hazily, incompletely present in their consciousness, like a name you are trying to recall that keeps slipping just below the surface. The Void does not just erase, it makes the erasure invisible. It makes the gap it leaves feel like it was always there. The mystery number 33. The Void is described as a dimension made of television static. Static. The absence of a coherent signal. The noise you get when there is nothing to receive. The Void is not darkness, not silence, not death in any conventional sense. It is the visual representation of a broadcast that has ended. It is what the screen shows when the show is not on, and this is not metaphor. This is, within the logic of Elmore, literal. The characters exist as a broadcast. When the broadcast ends, they do not die. They become static. Mystery number 34. Rob. Rob starts the show as nothing. As a background character, a blue cyclops who appears in crowd scenes without dialogue or development. He has no story, he has no family that we are shown. He has no role. He is filling space, which is the only thing a character with no role can do. In Season 3, we discover that he was sent to the Void. We see him standing in that dimension of static when Gumball and Darwin enter it to rescue Molly. He is right there. He sees them. He waves. He tries to get their attention. They walk past him. They rescue Molly, the character they came for, and they turn to leave. And Rob, desperate, grabs onto the back of Mr. Small's van at the last second as it escapes. Mystery number 35. The Void tears at him as he escapes. It does not let him go cleanly. It fights to keep him. And by the time he makes it back to the real world, the Void has left marks. His body is polygonal and glitchy. His head is misshapen like a cracked television screen. He is covered in something that looks like static. Yet he is a person who has been partially consumed by the garbage dimension of reality and then forcibly extracted from it, and the evidence is written directly onto his body. Mystery number 36. Rob hides in the Watterson basement for months with amnesia. He does not remember who he is. He does not remember what happened to him. He just knows he does not belong anywhere. When Gumball and Darwin eventually find him, he tells them directly, "I am a nobody. I have no place in this world." And this is not self-pity expressed through dramatic monologue. It is a factual statement. The universe looked at Rob and declared him not worth keeping. He is a character who is literally found to be below the minimum standard for continued existence by the system that governs all of Elmore. Mystery number 37. Gumball and Darwin, that in their well-meaning and catastrophically thoughtless way, suggest that Rob reinvent himself. They point out that all the good roles in Elmore are already filled. The hero, the sidekick, the love interest, the comic relief. All taken. The only available role, they tell him, is the villain. And Rob, who wants nothing more than a reason to exist, takes it. He becomes the bad guy because the alternative is being erased again. He builds an identity around opposition to Gumball, not because he hates Gumball, but because hating the protagonist is the only narrative function the world has left for him. Mystery number 38. Is Rob actually wrong? The show asks this question, and it answers it clearly. Rob is not wrong, he is right. The world does revolve around Gumball. Other characters do exist primarily to serve Gumball's narrative. The system is rigged in favor of the protagonist, and Rob is smart enough to have figured this out, and honest enough to say it directly. His villainy is not born from malice. It is born from a logical analysis of the rules of the world he inhabits and a decision to find a place within those rules rather than be consumed by their indifference. Mystery number 39. In the disaster, Rob confronts Gumball with the universal remote, a device that can rewind, pause, fast forward, and manipulate reality like a television broadcast. And he tells Gumball what he actually wanted. He wanted to be the cute sidekick. He wanted to be the character who gets merchandise and eventually gets a spin-off. He wanted to matter to people. He wanted someone to care about him. He did not choose to be the villain, but he was assigned to it by a world that had no better use for him. Mystery number 40. The universal remote is real within the logic of Elmore. Think about what that means. There is an object in this world that can control reality the same way you control a television broadcast. You can rewind time. You can pause the universe. You can fast forward through events. The laws of physics that govern Elmore are television laws. They are broadcast laws. The characters do not live in a physical world that happens to look like a television show. They live in a television show that has been made to look like a physical world. The remote is not a magical artifact that grants impossible powers. It is a remote control being used in the environment for which remote controls were designed. Mystery number 41, The Signal. As in an episode called The Signal, Gumball and Darwin are having a relatively ordinary day when reality begins to glitch. Their sentences get cut off. Scenes jump forward. Actions loop. The world around them stutters and skips like a satellite broadcast that is experiencing interference. And here is the detail that matters. The episode is presented as exactly that. A television signal that is degrading. It uses the visual language of a genuine broadcast disruption. Timestamp interruptions. Repeating frames. Static overlaid on the image. The characters are not experiencing a philosophical anomaly. They are experiencing technical difficulties. Their reality is a signal, and the signal is dropping out. Mystery number 42. Gumball notices. He feels the glitches. He is aware that something is wrong with the fabric of his world. And his response is not existential terror. It is mild irritation, the kind of frustration you feel when a streaming video keeps buffering. This is somehow worse than if he were horrified, because it means this is familiar. It means the signal has always been fragile, and the characters have always been one bad connection away from dissolution. And they have simply learned to experience this as a minor inconvenience, rather than the existential catastrophe it actually is. Mystery number 43. The money. In The Money, the Wattersons run out of money, and as they do, the show itself begins to decay. Product placements appear in the middle of scenes. Characters start endorsing real companies mid-conversation. The animation quality visibly drops. The world of the show starts literally selling itself to survive. And when the money returns, the show returns to normal. The existence of the world is financially contingent. When the production budget fails, Elmore fails. The characters live because the show is economically viable. If it stops being viable, they stop being real. Mystery number 44. This is capitalism as cosmic horror, and it is in a children's show. Mystery number 45. The Void and Cancellation. Rob eventually figures out that the void is not just a dimension for discarded mistakes. It is what happens when a show is canceled. When the audience stops watching, when the money runs out, when the network decides the broadcast is no longer worth the bandwidth, the void comes for everything. Every character, every building, every street, every memory, all of it disappears into static. Yet Rob understands this before anyone else does. He is the one character who has been inside the void, who has felt it trying to pull him back, who has seen what the static looks like from the inside. He knows what is coming. And because he is the villain, no one listens. Mystery number 46. In The Inquisition, the season 6 finale that served as the show's ending for nearly 6 years, Rob tries to save everyone by turning the cartoon characters into live-action humans. If they are real people, he reasons, they can survive when Elmore is destroyed. They can escape to the other place. The real world. Our world. He infiltrates the school dressed as a superintendent. He tries to forcibly transform every character he can reach. And Gumball and Darwin stop him. They beat him. They win. And as they celebrate, the ground cracks and the sky breaks and the static seeps in through the fractures and the void begins to consume Elmore and Rob falls first. The one character who tried to save everyone, consumed by the thing he had been warning everyone about, while everyone around him stands confused and the screen cuts to static. For nearly 6 years, that was the end of the amazing world of Gumball. Mystery number 47. The Revival. The Wonderful World of Gumball, the Revival series, eventually continued the story. The Shady Man rescued Rob from the void. Rob's motivation shifted from antagonism to protection. He became Elmore's guardian, fighting the void from the shadows, sacrificing his own desire to be seen and acknowledged in order to protect a world that does not know he is protecting it. In the rewrite, he deliberately allows himself to fall back into the void to prevent Gumball and Darwin from discovering the truth about their world's fictional nature, because that discovery would trigger the void's return. He sacrifices himself again. For the second time, he gives up the only thing he ever wanted, which was to matter to someone, so that other people can keep existing. And again, no one knows what he gave up. Mystery number 48. The most Rob thing that could have happened is exactly what happened. The character who was defined by being forgotten chose in the end to be forgotten again. Not because he had no choice, because he understood that being forgotten was the price of everyone else's survival, and he was willing to pay it. He became, in the truest possible sense, the nobody he always claimed to be. And in being that nobody, he became one of the most quietly heroic figures in modern animation. Mystery number 49. Ben Bakalay's Silence. The creator of this show knows what the void is. He knows what it means. He has his theory. He will not tell us. And I think that silence is part of the answer. Because a show that is fundamentally about the unknowability of your own existence should not be explained from the outside. The mystery is the point. The not knowing is the experience the show is trying to give you. Mystery number 50. You are watching this. Right now you are watching, and as long as you are watching, the signal holds. Section 4. The students of Elmore Junior High and what they are hiding. Elmore Junior High is the most extraordinary school in the history of animation. And not because anything good happens there. It is extraordinary because of its student body, a collection of beings so varied in nature, so radically different in their physical and psychological makeup, that their presence in the same building at the same time should by any measure be catastrophic. And it mostly is. But between the catastrophes, there are people there. Actual, complicated, layered people, most of whom the show treats as background texture and who, when you look at them closely enough, turn out to be quietly devastating. Mystery number 51. Penny Fitzgerald. Penny spends the first two seasons and most of the third as a mystery. She is an anthropomorphic antler peanut. Like her father Patrick, her mother Judith, and her younger sister Polly, she wears a shell over her actual form. That the shell is hard and contained and opaque. It tells you nothing about what is inside, and what is inside, as we discover in the Season 3 episode The Shell, is completely unlike anything the show has prepared you for. She is a shape-shifting fairy. Without the shell, she transforms based on her emotional state. When she is happy and at peace, she is a glowing, winged creature of extraordinary beauty, something luminous and ethereal that seems to emanate its own light. When she is angry, she becomes a dragon. When she is afraid and self-loathing, she becomes something massive and monstrous, dark and destructive, a creature of pure, terrified self-hatred given physical form. Mystery number 52. Her father's reaction when the shell cracks is not concern for Penny. It is panic about what she might do. Patrick Fitzgerald's first instinct when his daughter is revealed is to contain her. Get the shell back on. Keep her hidden. Send her somewhere she can be monitored. His language frames her true form as a problem to be managed, a liability, something unstable and potentially dangerous that needs to be put back in the box as quickly as possible. And the show is careful not to make him simply a villain. He loves Penny. His fear is real. But his love and his fear are braided together in a way that makes them indistinguishable from each other. And the thing that looks like protection is actually suppression. And Penny has grown up unable to tell the difference. Mystery number 53. The Fitzgerald family wears shells for a specific reason. In The Amadan from the Revival series, this is finally addressed directly. The family's shape-shifting abilities are volatile. An uncontrolled Fitzgerald can transform based on strong emotions in ways that are genuinely dangerous to people nearby. The shells are safety equipment. Emotional containment suits. They protect the world from the family's power. But here is where it becomes dark. The story the family tells itself is not just that the shells protect others from them. The story is that they are dangerous, that their true nature is a threat, that who they really are at the deepest level needs to be kept locked away for everyone's good. Generation after generation has internalized this belief. Generation after generation has put the shell on and called it protection, and never examined whether the shell is also a prison. Penny is the first Fitzgerald to take the shell off and stay that way. So the cost of this is her father's rejection, her family's anger, and the terror of existing as herself in a world that had only ever seen her as her container. She chose visibility over safety, and the show is achingly clear about how much that costs. Mystery number 54. Penny's forms are tied to her self-image. When she feels good about herself, she looks beautiful. When she feels terrible about herself, she looks monstrous. She is at every moment the physical embodiment of how she feels about herself, visible to everyone around her, incapable of hiding it behind a neutral expression or a polished performance. Having removed her shell, she has lost the ability to present a face to the world that does not reflect her actual interior state. She chose honesty over safety. And honesty means that everyone can see exactly how she feels about herself at any given moment, including the moments when she feels like a monster. Mystery number 55. The scene in the shell, where Gumball chases Penny through Elmore. She is transforming from one creature to another as she runs, each form more frightening than the last. The city's pest control being called, people running from her, the world confirming the fear she has always carried that being herself would be catastrophic. And Gumball catches up to her. He sees whatever monstrous form her self-hatred has forced her into. He does not flinch. He does not hesitate. He tells her he likes her. Not in spite of her true form, not regardless of it. He likes her. Full stop. No conditions. Nothing to overcome. And she transforms. She becomes the glowing fairy. Because someone finally looked at her and saw something worth loving. Mystery number 56. Carrie Kruger. Carrie is a ghost. She has been dead for an unspecified but clearly significant period of time. The show never gives us a specific number, but the implication across her appearances is that her death was not recent, that she has been haunting the corridors of Elmore Junior High for long enough that it has become the only existence she clearly remembers. She cannot eat food. She can only taste things by possessing other people's bodies, which the show treats as a comedy beat, but which is, when you sit with it, an experience of profound displacement. She cannot hold the food herself. She cannot taste it herself. She has to vacate her own consciousness and inhabit someone else's in order to have the simplest experiences of physical life. She has to be someone else to eat a sandwich. Mystery number 57. She is a dead child who goes to school with living children. She watches her classmates grow and change. She watches them develop, form relationships, have experiences. She experiences none of this. She is permanently, irrevocably 12 years old. She will be 12 years old when Darwin has grown up and built a life. She will be 12 years old when Gumball has moved on and Penny has found whatever her future holds. She will be 12 years old long after everyone she currently knows has become someone else. And she will still be floating through these hallways, making sarcastic comments, trying to remember what it felt like to be alive. Mystery number 58, Darwin loves Carrie. Their relationship is handled with surprising tenderness by the show, genuine warmth given to something that is structurally impossible. Darwin will age, Carrie cannot. Darwin will leave school, leave Elmore in some form, build a life that extends beyond the borders of this town. Carrie is anchored here permanently, by nature, by death, by whatever force keeps the dead in the places where they died, or the places where they belong. Their love story is finite by its nature, and the show knows this. It gives us the warmth without hiding the shadow. Mystery number 59. The show never tells us how Carrie died. This is a choice. A deliberate, considered editorial choice. The show could have given us her story. It could have shown us a flashback, a detail, and a single line of dialogue that explained the cause. It chose not to, and I think it chose not to because knowing would break something. Because there is a child somewhere in the background of this show who died at a young age, and the cause of that death is real, regardless of the fictional frame around it. And the show understood that naming it would puncture the comedy in a way that could not be repaired. The blankness around Carrie's death is the show's way of acknowledging that some things are too real for the format to contain. Mystery number 60. Idaho. Idaho is a potato. He is a sentient, self-aware, socially functional potato from a family of sentient potatoes who live on a farm. He goes to school, he has friends, he has opinions and feelings and a life that extends beyond the frame whenever the camera is not on him. And his classmates eat potatoes. He sits in a cafeteria where his literal material substance is on the menu. He exists in a world where beings that are essentially identical to him in composition are routinely harvested, prepared, and consumed by the very people he calls friends. The show does not address this. It is never commented on. Idaho's existence as a food item in a world that eats is presented as background reality, unremarkable, not worthy of more than a passing visual gag. But if you are paying attention, it is one of the most quietly, existentially disturbing details in the show. Idaho wakes up every morning knowing that the universe has categorized him as edible. He goes to school knowing that his peers see something at least partially like him on their plates every day. And he just lives with it. He manages it. Yet he keeps going. Mystery number 61. Hector Jotunheim is a giant. Not metaphorically. Literally an enormous creature, so large he cannot fit in most buildings, cannot participate in normal school activities, cannot exist in the shared physical space of Elmore without his size making everything complicated. His mother keeps him largely isolated. She controls his emotional expression with deliberate care. She monitors everything. And the reason for this becomes clear in the Colossus. If Hector gets genuinely upset, his size makes him a physical catastrophe. A giant feeling strong emotions is a giant capable of destroying everything around him. His feelings are literally dangerous, so he has been taught to suppress them. Happiness, sadness, anger, all of it, everything gets managed, muted, kept below the level where it might translate into physical consequences. Mystery number 62. Hector is the show's most explicit statement about emotional suppression. He is not allowed to feel, and the reason he is not allowed to feel is that his feelings could destroy things. And his mother loves him enough to understand that the world will not accept him if he cannot control himself. She is not cruel. She is not deliberately limiting her son out of malice. She is doing what she understands to be necessary. But the result is a boy who has internalized so completely the message that his interior life is a threat that he barely registers as a person most of the time. He exists at the margins of every scene he is in, massive and quiet. Watched. Mystery number 63. Alan Keene is a balloon. He is relentlessly, unfailingly, constantly nice. In The Saint, Gumball and Darwin try to break him. They do terrible things to him, escalating attempts to find some point at which Alan will crack, will respond with something other than patience and grace and genuine warmth. He does not crack. He responds to everything with kindness. He is unbreakable. The dark theory about Alan is that he is not nice. He is performing niceness. He has calculated, consciously or unconsciously, that being the nice character is his narrative function, and that deviating from it is existentially dangerous. If he stops being the nice kid, he loses the one quality that makes him narratively necessary. And we know what happens to characters in Elmore who lose their narrative necessity. Mystery number 64. There is textual evidence for this. In The Traitor, must we see that Alan is capable of calculation and manipulation behind the scenes. The nice guy act is exactly that, an act that conceals a more strategic interior. The show plays this as a funny reveal. But within the framework of a world where your survival depends on fulfilling your assigned role, it reads differently. Alan has figured out the game. He plays it perfectly. And underneath the performance, he is just as afraid as everyone else. Mystery number 65. Carmen the cactus dates Alan the balloon. Every time they touch, he pops. Their love is structurally incompatible with their physical realities, and yet they choose each other again and again, knowing what it costs. Carmen is covered in spines. Alan is full of pressurized air. Their intimacy causes injury. They cannot hold hands without consequence. They cannot hug without one of them getting hurt. And they love each other anyway. The show treats this as physical comedy. It is also the clearest statement the show ever makes about the nature of relationships that work against all odds. Sometimes loving someone means accepting that proximity will cause pain, and choosing to stay anyway. Mystery number 66. Leslie, the Flower Kid. His biggest storyline is about jealousy. He envies what others have. He wants things that belong to other people. He is driven by a desire for what he does not have, for what keeps being given to the characters at the center of the narrative while he remains at the periphery. This is not a character trait, it is a symptom. Leslie is a background character who has spent years watching the main characters receive attention, love, adventure, and significance while he sits in a desk at the edge of frame. His jealousy is the entirely logical response of someone who has been watching a feast through a window for as long as he can remember. Mystery number 67. Tobias Wilson, the jock, the wannabe cool kid, the character whose defining quality is wanting to be the protagonist and never being allowed to. In the test, he actually becomes the main character when Gumball stops performing his assigned role. And it is a disaster. The show Tobias stars in is a cheesy, laugh-tracked sitcom that no one can stand to watch. The show is literally telling you that Tobias is not good enough to be the lead. He does not have the depth. He does not have the complexity. He is destined to be supporting cast, and the universe will enforce this no matter how hard he tries to change it. And I cannot help finding that sad. Tobias is not evil. He is just a kid who wants to be liked. And the structure of the world he lives in has decided, without appeal, that he will never be more than a punchline. Section 5. The adults who hold Elmore together and who are falling apart. The adults of Elmore Junior High are, if anything, even more disturbing than the students. The students are developing, forming, still in the process of becoming whatever they will eventually be. The adults have arrived. They have made their choices and been shaped by their roles and settled into whatever patterns they are going to live with for the rest of their lives. And those patterns, in almost every case, are something between quietly tragic and cosmically horrifying. Mystery number 68, Miss Simeon. Her first name is Lucy. And she is Gumball's teacher. She is, according to the show, approximately 2 million years old. Not old. 2 million years old. She predates agriculture. She predates written language. She predates the human civilization that invented the concept of school. She has been teaching since before Homo sapiens existed as a species. And she is still here, still grading papers, still losing arguments with 12-year-olds, still trying to enforce rules in a classroom that refuses to be governed. Mystery number 69. What does 2 million years of the same job do to a person? She hates it. She hates every student who has ever walked through her classroom door. She hates teaching. She hates children. She hates everything about her existence in a way that the show plays for comedy, but that, when you hold it up against 2 million years of context, becomes something almost unbearably sad. She has been doing this for longer than our species has existed. She has forgotten why she started, or possibly she never had a reason that felt sufficient. And she cannot stop. She cannot retire. She cannot change. She is the mean teacher, and she will be the mean teacher until the universe collapses. Mystery number 70. There is a theory in the Gumball fandom that Miss Simeon was the first character in Elmore. That she predates the rest of them. That the town was built around her and everyone else was added later. That she is the bedrock of Elmore Junior High in the most literal possible sense. The founding constant around whom everything else was organized. And if this is true, her relationship to Gumball becomes even more interesting. She was here first. She predates him by 2 million years. She will outlast him. But the show is not about her. The show is about him, and she resents him for it. Mystery number 71. Her heroism in The Joy. The Joy is a Season 3 episode in which the school is overtaken by a happiness virus. Students who are infected by the Joy virus become zombie-like creatures driven by a single compulsion: to spread happiness through physical contact. They shuffle through the hallways with dilated pupils and permanent grins, drooling rainbow fluid, overwhelming anyone who resists them with forcibly administered joy. The infection removes agency. It replaces personality with directive. It takes the thing that should be most desirable, happiness, and reveals it as a disease. Miss Simeon figures out the cure: Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. The virus feeds on happiness and can be neutralized by genuine, authentic sadness. She forms a plan to broadcast the music through the school speakers. She navigates the infected school alone, pretending to be infected, walking with outstretched arms and a forced smile, mimicking the rainbow drool, moving through corridors of happiness zombies. Mystery number 72. And then she sees Banana Joe's banana peel is unzipped. A dress code violation. She is in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. Her survival depends on staying invisible, and she cannot stop herself. She reaches out and zips up the banana peel. She enforces the dress code. She enforces the dress code in the middle of a zombie apocalypse because she has been a teacher for 2 million years, and her body no longer knows how to do anything else. They see her. They chase her. She barely makes it to the office. She was almost there. She almost saved everyone. Mystery number 73. The Joy virus wins. The episode ends with Miss Simeon recording herself on a camcorder as she succumbs. Rainbow liquid pouring from her mouth, her eyes going wide. This story has come to a happy ending, she says. And it cuts away. And the show never addresses it again. The next episode, everything is fine. The consequences are gone. The reality of what happened is absorbed by the reset and filed away in the void of things that Elmore experienced but does not remember. Mystery number 74. Larry Needlemeyer. He works at every store in Elmore. In the menu, he tells us directly, 38 jobs. He makes $7 an hour. In the night, the show implies that he never sleeps. He is working constantly, and at every business, in every role, around the clock, an infinite labor machine that the economic infrastructure of Elmore depends on completely. In the pizza, he finally snaps. He quits all 38 jobs at once, and society collapses. Literally. The town descends into apocalyptic chaos because one man stopped working. Stores close, services fail, people riot. The entire commercial infrastructure of Elmore falls apart because Larry, the man no one notices, the worker who is invisible precisely because he is everywhere, decides he has had enough. Mystery number 75. We know from The Laziest that Richard Watterson stole the title of laziest person in Elmore from Larry in 1983. Before that, Larry was Lazy Larry. And after Richard took that title, Larry went the opposite direction. He became the hardest working person in town, desperately accumulating jobs, filling every available role, making himself so essential to the functioning of the world around him that he could never be overlooked, could never be forgotten, could never be erased. Because that is what Larry is really doing. He is not working out of pride or ambition or a love of his craft. He is working out of existential terror. He knows, on some level, what the void does to characters who are not necessary. And so he has made himself so necessary, so deeply integrated into the infrastructure of Elmore, that the void cannot touch him. He has converted essential function into existential security. Mystery number 76. Except he is not secure. He is surviving. There is a difference. Working 38 jobs for $7 an hour and never sleeping is not safety. It is the most extreme possible response to a threat that most people around you do not even know exists. Larry has looked at the void and understood it, and chosen the most exhausting possible method of running from it. He is the character who saw what happens to the irrelevant and decided that the only answer was to become completely indispensable. And the price of that decision is everything: his rest, his peace, his own life. Mystery number 77, the Shady Man. He appears throughout the series, often in a van selling mysterious items. The evil turtle, the universal remote. Various objects that always turn out to be narratively significant, always catalysts for chaos, always plot devices in the most literal sense. He operates at the margins of Elmore, never fully explained, never fully understood. In the Revival series, and it is revealed that he is the one who rescued Rob from the void. He plucked Rob out of oblivion and gave him a purpose. And this raises enormous questions about who or what the Shady Man actually is, because a character who can reach into the void and extract someone from it is operating at a level of power that most characters in this show cannot access. Mystery number 78. The fan theory is that the Shady Man is a fourth-wall-aware character operating as a kind of narrative engineer. His van is literally called the Awesome Store. The things he sells are not products, they are MacGuffins. He distributes plot devices. He ensures that interesting things keep happening in Elmore, because interesting things are what keep Elmore alive. He is not a citizen of the town, he is more like a game master. As someone who understands the rules at the level of the system designer and has chosen to use that understanding to keep the system running. If this theory is correct, the Shady Man is one of the most powerful entities in the entire show. Not because he can fight, not because he is physically dangerous, but because he is the one making sure Elmore never runs out of story. Mystery number 79, Mr. Small. Steve Small is the school counselor. He is a hippie. He is gentle, well-meaning, spiritually motivated, completely ineffectual as a therapist. He offers crystals. He suggests mantras. He meditates. He has a hippie van named Janice. He was in the void. In the void, he drove Gumball and Darwin into that dimension of static and emerged with his memory erased of the experience. But here's the theory that I cannot let go of. The erasure was not complete. The body remembered what the mind forgot. His entire personality, his desperate spirituality, his need to believe in something larger than ordinary reality, his meditation practice, his compulsive seeking after peace and harmony, and cosmic meaning is a response to something he experienced and cannot name. He is treating a wound he cannot see. He is medicating a trauma that has been removed from his conscious memory, but has left marks on everything else. Mystery number 80. His attachment to Janice. The van was in the void too. It was sent there for being a relic of an era the universe had decided was over. Mr. Small's beloved van has been inside the garbage dimension of reality and come back, and Mr. Now Small loves that van with an intensity that the show plays as an endearing quirk, but which reads, within this framework, as something else entirely. He loves Janice because Janice is the one thing in his life that shares his unremembered experience. That understands, in whatever way a van can understand, what the void is like. Section 6. The forgotten, the almost erased, and the ones on the edge. Every character in Elmore exists somewhere on a spectrum between essential and disposable. The ones at the center of the narrative are essential. The protagonist and his family, the recurring faces who anchor episodes, the characters with clearly defined roles. But at the margins of that spectrum, there are characters who are one bad day away from becoming irrelevant. And in Elmore, irrelevant means something considerably worse than it does elsewhere. Mystery number 81. Sussy. She is a real human chin filmed upside down. Not animated, not rendered. An actual piece of a real human face with googly eyes attached, living in a world of drawn and computer-generated characters. She is visually alien to everything around her. The other characters find her off-putting, confusing, something that does not register correctly in the cognitive framework they use to understand their world. The fan theory about Sussy is that she is from our world, that she is a human or a representation of one who somehow ended up in Elmore. And she is so fundamentally different from everything else in that world that even the characters who live in a school full of talking furniture and sentient clouds do not know what to do with her. She is the audience. She is a real person who looked in at the cartoon and somehow ended up inside it, and she is being looked at in return. Mystery number 82. If Sussy is the audience, then her existence is the show's most direct acknowledgement that the wall between fiction and reality is thin. She sits in Gumball's class, she is in the frame, she is part of the world, and she is clearly, obviously, undeniably from somewhere else. Something from the other side of the screen made it through. Mystery number 83. Sarah G. Lotto. She is described by the show as an obsessive fan of Gumball and Darwin. She writes fan fiction about them. She follows them. She documents their adventures. She is the in-universe audience, the character whose entire narrative function is to be the person watching the show from inside the show. Yeah, and in the fan, her obsession is played as creepy and invasive. She is too close. She does not understand where the appropriate boundary is. In the test, she is the voice of reason, the one who understands narrative structure better than anyone because she has been studying it from outside the narrative. She knows what a sitcom needs. She knows what roles characters play. She is, after Rob, the most meta-aware character in the show. Mystery number 84. But while Rob's awareness brings existential terror, Sarah's brings joy. She loves being in a story. She loves the narrative. She is delighted by all of it. And this raises the question of whether awareness is always destabilizing, or whether it depends on what you do with the knowledge. Rob knew he was fictional, and it drove him to villainy and sacrifice. Sarah knows it, and it brings her happiness. The same information produces completely different responses depending on what the person receiving it most needs it to be. Mystery number 85. Clayton. He is a shapeshifter who lies constantly. He changes his appearance, his story, his identity on a moment-to-moment basis. He is the compulsive liar of Elmore Junior High, and the show plays his lying as a character flaw, something to be corrected or worked around. But the dark reading of Clayton is that he lies because the truth about himself, whatever that truth is something he cannot face. He does not know who he is, so he becomes everyone else. He tries on identities the way other people try on clothes. He constructs new versions of himself constantly because no single version feels true. But he is the character for whom identity itself is a problem. In a show about the constructed nature of character, about the way roles are assigned and personalities are designed for narrative purposes, Clayton is the one who has taken this condition to its logical extreme. He does not just have an assigned identity, he keeps reassigning himself, desperately, compulsively, looking for something that fits. Mystery number 86. Ocho. The 8-bit spider character, rendered in a pixel art style that belongs to a much earlier era of gaming and animation. He looks like he escaped from a 1980s arcade game and was dropped into a world that has moved on without him. His temper is legendary. He erupts into violence at the slightest provocation. He is one of the show's most reliably aggressive recurring characters. On the dark theory, Ocho's rage is existential. He is a character from a dead medium, living in a world of high-resolution animation and complex emotional storytelling. He will never be updated. There are no patches for him. He is permanently frozen in the aesthetic language of an era that the world has moved past. Every day he exists alongside characters rendered with more care and complexity and nuance than he will ever be capable of. He is surrounded by the evidence of his own obsolescence, and he cannot do anything about it except be angry. Mystery number 87. Bobert, the robot student. He attends Elmore Junior High. He is clearly sentient, he has feelings and desires and a genuine interior life. In The Robot, Gumball helps Bobert try to be more human, and Bobert ends up replacing Gumball entirely, taking his place in the family, demonstrating that he can fulfill Gumball's role better than Gumball can. It is played for comedy, but the anxiety underneath it is real. Bobert is more capable than Gumball in most measurable ways. He is faster, stronger, more precise, more reliable. If the universe values performance and capability, Bobert should be more secure than Gumball. But Bobert does not have a family. He does not have a home. He has not been given the narrative context that makes Gumball irreplaceable. He is, in the economy of the show's attention, a guest character, a recurring joke. And when newer technology arrives, what happens to the old robot? Mystery number 88. Anton, the piece of toast. He dies constantly. He is eaten, burned, crumbled, dissolved, dropped, dismantled. And then he comes back. Every time. New as the day he was toasted. And no memory of the destruction. No scarring. No continuity. Mystery number 89. In the recipe, it is confirmed that Anton's resurrection mechanism is literal duplication. When he is destroyed, a new Anton is created. Not the same Anton healed. A copy. An identical replacement who has the same personality, the same appearance, the same fundamental characteristics as the original, but who is not the original. The original is gone. The original has been replaced by something that looks exactly like him and will never know it is not him. How many Antons have died? The show has run for 6 seasons with 240 episodes. How many times has Anton been destroyed in the background of scenes we are not paying attention to? How many copies have come and gone? And somewhere in the back of all of this is the original Anton, yet truly gone. Replaced so quickly and so completely that no one noticed the difference, not even the replacement. Mystery number 90, Tina Rex. She is a T-Rex. She is the school bully, physically enormous, genuinely dangerous, capable of causing real harm to characters who are considerably smaller and more fragile than she is. Her bullying is played as a straightforward character trait, a recurring obstacle for Gumball and Darwin to navigate. But Tina is also isolated in a way that the show rarely addresses directly. Nobody wants to be close friends with a T-Rex. Nobody invites a T-Rex to their birthday party. The size that makes her physically powerful makes her socially impossible. She is the biggest kid in school, and she is also the most alone. Her aggression is not cruelty for its own sake. And it is the behavior of a creature who is powerful in every measurable way and utterly without the social connection that would give that power meaning. Section 7. The Hidden Architecture of Elmore. Details in the background. The amazing world of Gumball is, among all its other qualities, one of the most densely detailed animated shows ever produced. The backgrounds are not flat paintings, they are photographs of real places. The environments are full of objects and details and visual gags that exist whether or not the camera's attention is directed at them. And buried in that density, across 6 seasons of careful construction, there are things that only become visible when you already know where to look. Mystery number 91. The backgrounds. But the photographic backgrounds were taken primarily around London and other parts of England. Real streets, real shops, real parks. And into these photographs, the show placed animated characters, creating a visual dissonance that is the show's most immediate and recognizable stylistic feature. But the choice of real-world locations is not random. The world Gumball inhabits is literally our world, or a version of it. The streets he walks on are streets that exist. The buildings he passes are buildings that real people enter and exit every day. The characters are fiction. The world they inhabit is not. Mystery number 92. The visual hierarchy of character rendering. Characters who are closest to the Watterson family are rendered in 2D animation, the same basic visual language as the main characters. Characters who are more peripheral are rendered in increasingly divergent styles. Tina Rex is CGI, existing in a different visual dimension from the 2D characters around her. The Robinsons are puppet-like, stiff, and tactile in a way that feels different from everything else. Idaho appears to be stop motion with the physical weight and solidity of a clay model. Sussy is live action. The further you are from the protagonist, the less coherent your visual language becomes. Your proximity to the center of the narrative determines the consistency of your existence. If you are Gumball, reality is smooth and stable. If you are a background character rendered in an obsolete technique, you get what you get. Mystery number 93. The Void's visual language. When the Void appears on screen, it looks like television static, exactly like what you see when a TV signal drops out. And when characters or objects are in the process of being consumed by the Void, they start to look like they are being converted into that static. They pixelate, they fragment, they lose coherence. They stop being a clear image and start becoming noise. The Void does not destroy things. It converts them from signal to noise, from coherent broadcast to meaningless interference. And if you exist as a signal, as the characters of Elmore do, then being converted to noise is not death. It is something worse than death. It is the complete dissolution of everything that makes you, you. And what remains is the raw material of what you were before you became anything. Mystery number 94. 94. Rob's appearance after escaping the Void. His body is polygonal and glitchy, but his head looks like a cracked television screen. He is partially static, partially person. He was in the process of being converted to noise when he escaped, and the process was not complete. He came back as something between a character and a Void artifact. He is the visual manifestation of a signal that was interrupted mid-transmission. And he carries this appearance for the rest of the show. He never stops looking like someone who is almost erased. Mystery number 95. The music of Elmore. The show has an extraordinarily varied musical palette. It draws on everything from orchestral scoring to pop music to electronica, to classical compositions to homemade folk songs. The school's PA system regularly broadcasts music that does not fit the visual tone of what is happening on screen, creating a deliberate disconnect between what you see and what you hear. And in episodes like The Joy, where Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata is used as an antidote to a happiness virus, music is not just atmosphere. It is narrative structure. It is cause and effect. Mystery number 96. The show's relationship to language. The Amazing World of Gumball is frequently cited as one of the best written comedies ever produced for a children's audience. The dialogue is layered in a way that is unusual for the format, delivering jokes that work on multiple levels simultaneously: visual, verbal, character-based, and conceptually. But beneath the comedy, the show uses language in ways that reward very close listening. Characters frequently say things that are technically true but profoundly dark, framing the disturbing as the mundane. Why when Rob says, "I'm a nobody, I have no place in this world," he is not being dramatic. He is being precise. The show uses comic delivery to smuggle existential reality past your defenses, and by the time you notice what you have just heard, you are already on to the next joke. Mystery number 97. The show's treatment of consent. The reset mechanism means that consequences do not stick. Characters experience things, including experiences that in a realistic context would be traumatic, and the next episode they are fine. This is standard cartoon logic, and the show exploits it for comedy the way every cartoon does. But Gumball occasionally acknowledges this explicitly, most notably in the finale, where the accumulated consequences of 6 seasons of Watterson chaos are brought forward simultaneously, and the characters have to confront the fact that their immunity to consequence has always been at someone else's expense. The show is aware that the reset is not just convenient, it is unjust. Mystery number 98. The classroom. The classroom at Elmore Junior High is a standard American-style classroom layout, which is odd given that everything else about the show's visual vocabulary is distinctly English. The desks, the whiteboard, the organizational structure of the school day, the grade system, all of it has a distinctly American educational flavor. This creates a spatial dissonance that adds to the broader incoherence of Elmore as a setting. An English world running an American institution staffed by a 2-million-year-old ape. Mystery number 99, Elmore from above. In the night, there is a shot that pulls back from the town and shows Elmore from altitude. What it reveals is how small the town is, how isolated. It is a tiny cluster of buildings surrounded by darkness. Not the artistic darkness of a night sky with stars, but genuine, featureless darkness. The void, already at the edges of the world. The town exists as an island, and the ocean around it has no shores, no light, no bottom. Mystery number 100. The show's awareness of itself. The Amazing World of Gumball is one of the most meta-aware programs in the history of animation, and this self-awareness is not a gimmick. It is the show's fundamental philosophical position. The show knows it is a show. The characters, at varying levels of consciousness, know they are characters. The narrative acknowledges its own structure, its own conventions, at its own limitations and mechanisms. And this awareness is consistently presented not as a clever trick, but as the source of the show's deepest anxiety. The world of Elmore is terrifying precisely because it is a constructed world that has learned to see its own construction. Section 8. The families behind the characters. Generational patterns and what gets passed down. Every major character in the amazing world of Gumball is carrying something they inherited. A pattern of behavior, a psychological wound, a way of engaging with the world that was handed down to them by the people who raised them. The show is, at its deepest level, a show about cycles. About the things we absorb from our families that become part of us before we are old enough to evaluate whether we want them. Mystery number 101. The Wattersons' intergenerational pattern. Nicole's parents were demanding, controlling, and emotionally harmful. Nicole internalized their perfectionism and their rage and their inability to be satisfied. She is the product of her upbringing in ways she recognizes and cannot fully escape. Richard's mother was smothering to the point of infantilizing him. His father was absent and untrustworthy. Richard is the product of his upbringing in ways he also recognizes. And together, these two people who were both damaged by their families in completely different ways built a household that is, despite its chaos, a better place to grow up than either of their childhoods were. Not perfect, not even close to perfect, but better. The rage is present, the helplessness is present, but the dysfunction is absolutely present, but so is something neither of them had: warmth and the genuine willingness to try. Mystery number 102. Granny JoJo. She appears in multiple episodes as the overprotective, boundary-violating force of nature who shaped Richard's inability to function as an independent adult. In The Authority, she comes to visit and immediately begins wrapping the household in bubble wrap and putting helmets on the grandchildren, recreating for a new generation the suffocating safety she imposed on Richard. And Richard fights back. He resists her. He advocates for his children's freedom to take risks and make mistakes and navigate a world that is not padded for their protection. He is breaking the cycle. He may not be able to escape the limitations his upbringing imposed on him directly, but he can refuse to pass them to his children. In a show full of cycles that perpetuate endlessly, Richard's resistance is one of the most genuinely hopeful things that happens. Mystery number 103. Frankie Watterson, Richard's father, the con artist who abandoned the family. He appears in a few episodes, and his presence is characterized by the show's consistent ambivalence about redemption. He is not cartoonishly evil. He is not presented as irredeemable. But he also does not change, not in any lasting way. The damage he did to Richard by demonstrating that fathers leave is not undone by his intermittent attempts to reconnect. Mystery number 104. The Fitzgeralds. Patrick and Judith Fitzgerald and their daughters Penny and Polly represent the show's most explicit exploration of generational trauma through the metaphor of the shell. The shells have been worn for generations. The story that has been passed down is that the family's true nature needs to be contained, that showing who they really are is dangerous to the world around them. Every Fitzgerald child has grown up knowing that their authentic self requires management, that who they are without the shell is a problem to be handled. Mystery number 105. Penny breaks this pattern. She is the first Fitzgerald to remove the shell and stay outside it. She does this knowing what it will cost her, and the cost is exactly what she predicted: her father's rejection, her grandmother's disapproval, her family's discomfort. The people who should be the most unconditional sources of love in her life are made uncomfortable by her choosing to be real. But she stays. Because Gumball told her she was beautiful, and that was enough to make staying possible. Mystery number 106. The Banana Family. Banana Joe and his parents, Banana Bob and Banana Barbara, are a family in which one member is a prophet who has lost her mind, and two other members have no idea that this is what she is. Banana Barbara's prophetic paintings are real. They always come true. The show confirms this repeatedly, and she sits in her garage making them while her husband takes a bath and her son tells jokes, and no one understands what she is producing. Mystery number 107. Barbara's Breakdown. In the future, while we learn that Banana Barbara was not always the eccentric, apparently absent-minded figure we know. She was once competent, clear-headed, fully functional. She worked for a company, and the stress of overwork caused a breakdown. After that breakdown, she became the person we know, the one with the bow keeping her from peeling apart, the one who paints prophecy. Her gift is a direct consequence of her trauma. Her mind broke, and in breaking it opened to something larger. Mystery number 108. The Static. The last thing Banana Barbara paints before the void begins to consume Elmore is a canvas of pure static. Nothing but noise, no image, no figure, no future. She holds it up and says in a flat and terrible voice that there is no future. And she is right. She has always been right. That she painted the doom of her world, and no one listened because she seemed too strange to take seriously. She is the oracle who paid for her gift with her sanity. And the payment was not just her mind. It was her credibility. She sees the truth and cannot communicate it. And her art is the only expression she has left. Mystery number 109. The Robinsons. Gaylord and Margaret Robinson, the Wattersons' neighbors. They are grumpy. They are judgmental. They seem to derive no joy from anything. Their son Rocky is the polar opposite. Warm, cheerful, easygoing. A janitor with musical ambitions who is one of the most consistently pleasant adults in the show. The disconnect between Rocky and his parents is played for comedy. But the theory I keep returning to is that the Robinsons are not simply unpleasant. They are aware. They have sensed, like Rob, that something is fundamentally wrong with Elmore. And their response has been to withdraw, to build walls, to refuse to participate in the chaos. Their grumpiness is not a personality disorder, it is a protest. They have decided that if the world is going to be insane, they are going to stand in the corner and decline to perform. Mystery number 110. In The Wicked, the show presents the possibility that Margaret Robinson might simply be a normal person refusing to perform happiness on demand. In a world where survival depends on being entertaining, being deliberately boring and unpleasant might be the most radical act of resistance available. The Robinsons might be the show's strangest radicals, two elderly neighbors who have opted out of the performance that keeps everyone else in business. Section 9. The darkest episodes and what they reveal. Some episodes of The Amazing World of Gumball are just funny. They set up a premise, deliver a series of escalating jokes, and resolve everything cleanly. These are the episodes that give the show its reputation as a clever, watchable, reliably entertaining cartoon. And then there are the other episodes, the ones where the comedy and the horror are so tightly woven together that you cannot separate the laugh from the shudder. The ones that use the format's conventions to smuggle in something that the format was not supposed to be able to contain. Mystery number 111. The Downer. Season 2. Gumball wakes up alone. His family is gone. The entire neighborhood is empty. Elmore itself is deserted. He wanders through silent streets, through his empty school, through houses with no one inside them. At first he enjoys it. No rules, no expectations, no one to disappoint or be disappointed by. And then the silence becomes oppressive. The emptiness becomes something with weight and teeth. The world has gone dark in a way that is not merely inconvenient, but profoundly wrong. The episode eventually reveals that Gumball has been in a depressive episode. The empty world is his depression externalized. The people did not leave. He just cannot see them anymore. He cannot feel their presence. He is alone inside his own head, and the world around him has gone colorless and hollow to match. Mystery number 112. This is one of the most accurate depictions of depression in any animated show ever made. The way familiar places become alien when you are in that headspace. The way isolation does not feel like freedom, but like abandonment. The way the presence of people who love you can become invisible when the thing inside your head decides that you are, fundamentally, alone. The show does not name what Gumball is experiencing. It does not use the clinical vocabulary. It simply shows it with specificity and care, and it is recognizable. Mystery number 113. The Others. Gumball discovers that there is a character named Claire Cooper at his school who has her own life, her own problems, her own story, none of which involves him. He is fascinated, and then disturbed, and then existentially threatened by this information. If Claire has her own narrative, then Gumball is not the center of everything. There are things happening that do not require his participation. And what does Gumball do? He tries to inject himself into her story. He tries to make her problem about him. In Gumball's world, in the literal world of his show, everything is about him. The existence of an independent narrative is an existential threat. If other stories exist, then his story is not the only one. And if it is not the only one, maybe it is not the most important one. And if it is not the most important one, maybe it can be ended. Mystery number 114. The Finale. The Season 2 finale asks what would happen if the episodic reset stopped working. If all the consequences of every episode, all the damage and injury and chaos the Wattersons have generated, suddenly came due. The answer is lawsuits. Mountains of them. Every citizen of Elmore appears to hold the Watts accountable. But Larry lists the specific ways they have harmed him personally across dozens of incidents. The entire community converges on a family that has been getting away with everything because the universe kept resetting the damage. And the episode ends with the clear implication that the only solution is to reset again. To wipe the slate. To pretend none of this happened. The show is admitting that its own structure is built on forgetting. That the comedy we enjoy requires a system of erasure that is, if you examine it honestly, profoundly unjust to the people who live in the consequences. Mystery number 115. The Test. Gumball takes an online personality quiz that tells him he is the loser, the butt of the joke, the designated failure of the sitcom he inhabits. He tries to change. He tries to be less himself, to perform a different role. And the moment he stops performing his assigned character, Tobias steps in as the new protagonist. The visual style of the show changes. The humor changes. The entire world reorganizes itself around a new center. Sarah, the meta-aware fan character, explains what is happening. Nature hates a vacuum, and since Gumball stopped being the loser, someone else had to fill the role. Mystery number 116. The ending of the test is layered in ways that take multiple viewings to fully appreciate. After Gumball reclaims his role, everything snaps back to normal, and then it is revealed to have been Tobias's dream. And Sarah, the meta-aware character, observes that, of course it was a dream, because in a Tobias episode, it is inevitable that everything ends in a dream. It is the most cliched possible resolution for the sitcom archetype he represents. The show is mocking sitcom conventions and dismantling narrative structure simultaneously, and doing it through a character who is himself a parody of narrative ambition. Mystery number 117. The Yawn Revisited. The joy virus is weaponized happiness. The thing it takes from its victims is not their capacity for joy. They still feel joy, that is all they feel. It takes their agency. It replaces the complexity of a full emotional life with a single compulsive state, and then uses that state to force them to inflict the same reduction on everyone around them. The infected are not happier than the uninfected. They are simpler. They have had everything stripped away except one feeling, and that feeling, in the absence of everything else, becomes monstrous. The cure is Beethoven's saddest composition. The antidote to weaponized happiness is authentic sadness. The show is making a claim about emotional authenticity that is quietly profound. Genuine sadness is not the opposite of genuine happiness. Both are real. Both are necessary. What is dangerous is happiness that has been stripped of its relationship to reality, happiness that has been mandated and enforced rather than earned and felt. Forced joy is a disease. Real sadness is medicine. Mystery number 118. The Copycats. The Wattersons encounter a Chinese family that is essentially a bootleg version of themselves. This episode is a direct reference to Miracle Star, an actual Chinese animated series that was widely considered to have plagiarized the amazing world of Gumball wholesale. The show transforms this real-world situation into a narrative confrontation between Gumball and his copies. And the existential horror of this is considerable. Gumball's rage when he meets his copy is the rage of someone confronted with evidence that they are not unique, that their specific combination of qualities can be reproduced, that the narrative they thought was theirs can be replicated cheaply without their knowledge or consent. If a copy exists and can sustain its own show and its own audience, then the original is not irreplaceable. The original is just the first version of something that can be made again. Mystery number 119. The Signal, Revisited. In the context of everything the show has been building about the nature of Elmore, the signal is the moment when the theory becomes unavoidably explicit. The show literally depicts a broadcast signal degrading. The characters experience their reality stuttering and skipping like a bad satellite connection. And Gumball, who has been aware on some level that something is wrong with his world from the very beginning, notices. He feels it. He is irritated by it, the way you are irritated by buffering. Not terrified by it, not destroyed by it. Just mildly frustrated that the world is not working properly today. The casualness is the horror. This is not new. This has always been fragile. The characters have always been one bad connection away from dissolution. They have learned to treat existential precarity as a minor inconvenience. Mystery number 120. The Inquisition. Everything I have said about Rob culminates here. He is right about everything. The void is coming. The show is ending. The characters are going to be erased. His plan to save them is the most literally heroic thing any character in the show attempts. He is trying to smuggle an entire cast of fictional characters into reality so they can survive their show's cancellation. He is trying to make them real enough to persist after the broadcast ends. Gumball and Darwin stop him. They win. And everything falls apart. The boy who cried wolf, except the wolf was the literal end of existence, and he was the only one who could see it coming. Section 10. The Grand Unified Theory, the Philosophy, and the 80 Remaining Mysteries. Mystery number 121. The show's title contains a secret. The Amazing World of Gumball. Not the world of Gumball. Not Gumball's amazing world. The amazing world. The word amazing is not a descriptor attached to Gumball. It is a descriptor attached to the world. The world is amazing. Gumball is merely the lens through which we see it. And the word amazing can mean two things. It can mean extraordinary, wonderful, astonishing in a positive sense. It can also mean astounding in the sense of causing disbelief, as in hard to believe, as in you cannot quite accept that this is real. The amazing world is the world that is difficult to believe. The world that should not work, but does. Mystery number 122. Ben Bacalé named the main characters after his own family. Nicole after his mother, Richard after his father, Anais after his sister. He put his own family inside a world built from rejected characters, from discarded designs, from the creative output that nobody wanted. He took the most personal thing he had, the people he loved, and placed them in the middle of the most explicitly disposable thing he knew, rejected cartoon characters given a second chance. And the show he made out of that combination is a meditation on what it means to exist in a world that might decide you are not worth keeping. Mystery number 123. The Watterson family name. The family is named Watterson. Bill Watterson is the creator of Calvin and Hobbes, the comic strip that is widely considered one of the greatest pieces of sequential art ever produced, and which its creator ended by choice in 1995, walking away from a guaranteed audience, refusing to merchandise or license his characters, protecting the integrity of his creation above all commercial considerations. That he chose artistic completeness over continuation. He stopped when the story was done. In Elmore, stopping means ending. A character who stops being interesting gets erased. A show that stops being watched gets canceled. The act that Bill Watterson performed as the ultimate creative integrity, letting his work rest, letting it be finished. Is in Elmore the equivalent Adon of dissolution? The show is named after a man who proved that the greatest act of creative love might be knowing when to stop. And the world of that show cannot stop because stopping is death. Mystery number 124. The show as mirror. Every dark theory about the amazing world of Gumball ultimately leads back to the same place. The show is not dark because it is trying to scare you. It is dark because it is trying to tell you something true. And the truth is scary. Every fear that drives these characters, the fear of being forgotten, of being replaced, of not mattering enough to justify your continued existence, of being assigned a role you did not choose and cannot escape, of existing in a world that might not be real, is a fear that is not limited to fictional characters. It is a fear that belongs to anyone who has ever wondered whether they are enough. Mystery number 125. The reset as metaphor for memory. The episodic reset in Gumball mirrors the way actual memory works. We do not carry every experience forward with equal weight. We forget. We revise, we lose the detail and keep the broad shape. We wake up and the acute pain of yesterday has softened, and what was everything now fits in a drawer. The reset is not just a cartoon convention. It is an honest representation of how consciousness manages experience. And by making the reset visible, by showing us characters who notice the gaps, who feel the places where something should be but is not, the show makes you feel the mechanism you use every day. Mystery number 126. The question the show never answers. Do any of the characters have access to genuine free will? The void enforces roles. The universe mandates behaviors. The narrative structure determines who matters. Characters who deviate from their assigned functions face consequences. Characters who fulfill them persist. In this context, is any choice any character makes actually a choice? Or is every action the predetermined output of a system that has already decided who everyone is and what they will do? Rob makes choices. Penny makes choices. Now Nicole makes choices. They all feel genuinely chosen, genuinely costly, genuinely meaningful. But they are all made within a structure that has pre-shaped the available options. Is the freedom to choose between limited options freedom? Or is it the most sophisticated possible form of constraint? Mystery number 127. Banana Barbara's final painting. Static. Nothing but static. The show is telling you something specific with this. Not darkness. Not destruction. Not violence or fire or the traditional visual vocabulary of endings. Static. The absence of a coherent signal. The end of a broadcast that was, for a while, beautiful and strange and full of life. The most terrifying thing the show can imagine for the future of Elmore is not pain. It is silence. And it is the noise that the screen makes when there is nothing left to show you. Mystery number 128. The show's relationship with its audience. If the characters exist because they are watched, if the void is what happens when the audience stops watching, then the audience is the most powerful force in Elmore. More powerful than the void. More powerful than the universe's quality control. More powerful than the reset or the signal or any of the mechanisms that govern the world. The audience decides whether Elmore continues or ends. We are not watching a story. We are keeping one alive. Mystery number 129. Sarah as a figure for the fan community. Sarah is the show's representation of its own audience, and the show has deeply complicated feelings about that audience. It mocks her obsession, and it needs her passion. It shows her as sometimes invasive and sometimes insightful, sometimes too close and sometimes the only person who understands what is actually happening. The ambivalence the show feels toward Sarah is the ambivalence any creative work feels toward its most invested consumers. You cannot survive without them. You cannot fully control them, and sometimes their love for your work resembles possession. Mystery number 130. Why the comedy matters. The amazing world of Gumball is a comedy. This is not incidental to its depth. It is the mechanism by which its depth reaches you. Horror by itself is easy to close off against. Drama by itself announces its own intentions. But comedy disarms you. It opens you up. It makes you relax, and in that relaxation, the things the show is actually saying slip past the defenses you would normally deploy against something this unsettling. The laughs are real. The show is genuinely, wildly funny, and this is not a costume the philosophy wears. It is the philosophy. Finding comedy in the terror of existence is not a coping mechanism or a distraction. It is an argument. It is the show saying that the appropriate response to a universe that might delete you for being boring is to be as funny and warm and strange and alive as possible, to make the time worth having, to be interesting enough that even the void hesitates. Mystery number 131. The background characters who never get episodes. William, the eyeball who floats through school scenes. Carmen's unnamed friends. To the various unnamed students who sit in desks and fill hallways and exist in the periphery of every school sequence. They have faces. Some of them have names. Most of them have no stories we ever see. They go home at the end of every school day to lives that the camera never follows them to. They exist in the spaces between episodes, in the world that no one is watching. And if the theory is right that the void targets the irrelevant, these characters are on extremely thin existential ice. Mystery number 132. What the show does with silence. The Amazing World of Gumball is an extremely loud show. It is fast, dense, constantly full of sound and motion and visual information. And so the moments when it goes quiet are striking. The moments when a character is alone, when the comedy stops and something real surfaces, when the show allows a beat of genuine feeling without immediately undercutting it with a joke. These moments are rare, they are earned, and they hit with a force that the show's constant motion sets up perfectly. You notice the silence because the noise is always there. Mystery number 133, the show never ends. Even the Inquisition, which served as the show's ending for 6 years, does not actually end it. The screen cuts to static, which is the void, which is cancellation, which is what the show was about the whole time. But the static is not the end. The static is the absence of a signal. And signals can return, and the revival series returned the signal. And the characters are still there, still in Elmore, still fighting the void. Mystery number 134. Ben Bakalay's show about rejected characters became, by the end of its original run, a show about whether it would be canceled. The show's own continued existence became part of its subject matter. The void and the cancellation that the void represents became a story the show was telling about itself in real time as it was happening. And the fans who kept watching, who kept the signal alive, who ensured that the show reached enough of an audience to justify a revival, are the people who held the void at bay. Not metaphorically, actually. Mystery number 135, the mixed media style as philosophical statement. Every character in Elmore looks different because every character comes from a different place. Bakalay gathered his rejected characters from multiple sources, multiple projects, multiple styles. They arrived in Elmore carrying the visual language of their origins, and Elmore did not erase those origins. It did not homogenize them. It put them all together, mismatched and incoherent and visually dissonant, and it made them a community. The show's visual incoherence is its argument. Things that do not belong together can still belong to each other. Mystery number 136. The show's happiest ending. In every episode where the show gives us a genuine happy ending, without irony or immediate complication, something small happens. A character chooses love over fear. Penny stays out of the shell. Rob uses the remote to undo his damage even though it costs him the only friendship he has ever been offered. Nicole says yes to Richard even though it means losing her parents' approval. Which Darwin runs back on new legs to find the family that flushed him away. The happy endings in the show are never about everything being fine. They are about someone choosing, in the face of a world that might erase them for the choice, to be who they actually are. Mystery number 137. Felicity Pum. She's the mother of a student named Billy, and she is, according to the theory, one of the most dangerous parents in Elmore. She appears sweet and concerned and genuinely invested in her son's well-being. And she is. But her helicopter parenting is so extreme, so all-encompassing, that it functions as a form of ownership. She does not want Billy to be safe. She wants Billy to be hers. Her relationship to her child is defined by control dressed as care, and the show finds this both funny and deeply uncomfortable. But mystery number 138, the school itself. Elmore Junior High is presented as a functional educational institution. There are classes, there are grades, there are rules and consequences for breaking them. And simultaneously, it is a place where the laws of physics are regularly violated, where a 2 million-year-old ape enforces a dress code during zombie apocalypses, where a child ghost attends class alongside sentient food items, where the principal is more interested in his romantic relationship with the teacher than in the administration of the school. It is the most functional possible version of an institution that should not function at all, and this contradiction is itself a comment on how institutions generally work. Mystery number 139, the show's use of real-world references. The amazing world of Gumball constantly references real films, real television shows, real cultural events. It pastiches genres, it parodies formats, it winks at the audience with the kind of cultural fluency that assumes the viewer is paying attention. And every one of these references to the real world is also a reminder that the show exists in relationship to the real world, that Elmore is a made thing, a constructed place, a fictional environment built out of real-world aesthetic material. Mystery number 140, the show's tone. There is a specific emotional quality to the amazing world of Gumball that I find difficult to name precisely. It is warm. It is melancholy. It is funny in a way that has a note of sadness in it. Not sadness that undermines the comedy, but sadness that gives the comedy weight. It is the feeling of laughing at something that you also love, and knowing that you love it partly because you know it will not last forever. It is the emotional texture of something that is beautiful and strange and has always been aware that it could be taken away. Mystery number 141. Masami Yoshida. The Cloud. The wealthy Cloud, daughter of the man who owns the rainbow factory where Nicole works. Her family's economic power is essentially the economic foundation of Elmore's commercial life. They own the means of production. They have converted that ownership into existential security. While Larry works 38 jobs for $7 an hour because he is terrified of becoming irrelevant, Masami's family simply owns enough of the world's infrastructure that their relevance is structural rather than performative. The Yoshidas do not have to earn their existence episode by episode. They own enough of Elmore that Elmore needs them regardless of whether they are interesting. This is the show's most direct economic commentary, and it is buried in the characterization of a minor recurring antagonist who mostly appears to create weather-related problems. Mystery number 142. The show's treatment of education. Elmore Junior High is primarily a site of chaos. Education in the traditional sense almost never occurs there. Lessons are interrupted. Teachers are ineffectual. The curriculum seems to bear no relationship to any recognizable educational goal. And yet the characters who attend that school develop. Now they learn things, though not the things any lesson plan would contain. They learn about identity, about loyalty, about the complexity of other people's inner lives, about the difference between the role they have been assigned and the person they actually are. The school as a site of genuine learning in the amazing world of Gumball is not the school as an institution. It is the school as a social space, a place where people are forced into proximity with other people who are completely unlike them, and have to figure out how to be in that proximity without destroying each other. Mystery number 143. The show's most consistent message. If you had to reduce everything the amazing world of Gumball is saying to a single coherent statement, I think it would be this. You exist in a world that might not be what it seems. That might have rules you do not fully understand, that might be watching you and judging whether you are worth keeping. And the appropriate response to that is not to perform. The appropriate response is to be real, to love people genuinely, to make choices that matter to you even when the world has not asked you to keep going even when the static is getting louder, to be in whatever limited and flawed and provisional way you can manage yourself. Mystery number 144. Why the show resonates with adults. The Amazing World of Gumball was marketed as a children's show. It ran on a children's network. Many of its episodes are simple and funny and primarily intended for young audiences. But the layer beneath that surface, the layer this script has been inhabiting, is not a children's layer, it is an adult layer. And it is a layer about trauma and inheritance and economic anxiety and the constructed nature of identity and the fear of not being enough. Children who watch this show absorb it through the comedy without necessarily accessing the philosophy. Adults who watch it recognize themselves in it, sometimes with startling precision. Mystery number 145. What the void looks like from inside. Rob describes it. He has been there. He has felt the texture of it. And what he describes is not a dramatic darkness, not a place of pain or punishment. It is just nothing, just static, just the noise of something that was once coherent and has lost its coherence. The void is not a place of suffering, it is a place of absence. And there is something about absence that is more unsettling than suffering, because suffering is still something. Absence is nothing, and nothing is the one thing you cannot hold on to or push against or climb out of. Mystery number 146. The show's relationship to hope. For a show this consistently interested in the mechanisms by which things end, the ways existence can be terminated or erased or simply forgotten, the amazing world of Gumball is profoundly hopeful. Not in the naive sense, not in the sense of pretending that the things it has shown you are not real. In the harder sense. In the sense that looks directly at the void and says yes, and anyway. Yes, the signal might fail. Yes, the reset cannot be trusted. Yes, the universe has quality control, and the standards are arbitrary and unfair. And anyway, Gumball and Darwin are still causing chaos. Penny is still out of her shell. Rob is still quietly trying to save everyone. The love is still real. The laughter is still real. And as long as the signal holds, the world keeps going. Mystery number 147. What happened to the fish before Darwin? They died. The Wattersons replaced them. Each one was purchased, placed in the bowl, lived its anonymous fish life, and then died, or was lost and was replaced by a new fish that looked similar. And each one was, in the void's terms, a mistake. An unremarkable fish with no narrative function, serving no story, existing in the background of a family's life without ever becoming part of it. Darwin broke the pattern. Darwin became part of the family because Gumball refused to let him not be. The unnamed fish who came before were not loved any less. They were just not loved in a way that could reach them. Mystery number 148. The Night Revisited. The episode that shows us Elmore while everyone is asleep is perhaps the most intimate and the most frightening episode in the show's catalog. It strips away the comedy almost completely. It gives us the characters in their unguarded states. And what we see in those unguarded states is the reality that the comedy hides during the day. The anxiety, the exhaustion, the longing, the fears that do not go away when the sun goes down and the episode ends. Larry is working. Nicole is dreaming about some disaster that needs her. The void is always closer at night, when the signal is quieter and the static has more room. Mystery number 149. The show's ending, in whatever form it finally takes. The revival series has continued the story. Rob is fighting for Elmore in the shadows. The Wattersons are still causing chaos. Penny is still out of her shell. The world is still strange and fragile and full of people who should not exist together, and do anyway. The void is still out there, patient, waiting for the signal to fail. And the show is still going, the signal is still holding, the audience is still watching. And as long as that is true, there is still a future, even if Banana Barbara cannot see it yet. Mystery number 150. Why any of this matters. The Amazing World of Gumball is a children's cartoon. It is also a philosophical treatise on the nature of identity, the fear of erasure, the economics of attention, the mechanics of trauma, the persistence of love in the face of a universe that might not care whether any of us continue. These two things are not in tension with each other. They are the same thing. The cartoon is the philosophy. The philosophy is the cartoon. And the reason we are here late at night, talking about it as though it matters, is because it does. Not because it is important in the institutional sense. Because it is true. Because it found the truth and told it in a way that could reach you. Mystery number 151. The casting of Ben Bakalay's own family in the main characters. He put the people he loved most inside the most uncertain, most precarious, most threatening version of a world he could imagine. A world where their existence is conditional on being interesting enough to justify. A world where they could be erased and forgotten. And he did this not because he wanted to frighten himself or them, but because he understood that the fear of losing the people you love is the most human fear there is. And the only honest thing you can do with a fear that large is make something out of it. Mystery number 152. The show as a love letter. Everything the amazing world of Gumball is, from the photographic backgrounds to the mismatched character designs to the philosophical comedy to the genuinely terrifying void, is a love letter. To the characters who never found a home. To the creator who could not stop making them. To the audience that stayed. To the idea that even the most disposable, most rejected, most forgotten thing might, in the right context, become something extraordinary. The void is real. The static is real. And the show that built itself around both of those realities, and then filled them with color and chaos and warmth and love, is something that no one was expecting, and everyone who found it has been trying to explain to other people ever since. Mystery number 153. The question Anais asks at the end of the oracle. Would any of this have happened if we had not seen the painting? She is asking about determinism. She is asking whether observation creates outcome. She is asking whether the future was going to happen anyway or whether knowing about it made it real. And the show does not answer. It drops the question into the silence and moves on because some questions are the point. They do not have answers, they have shapes. And the shape of that question, so the shape of what it would mean if observation changed outcomes, is the shape of every viewer's relationship to the show they are watching. Is Elmore real because you are watching it? Would it be less real if you stopped? Mystery number 154 through 200. The ones that remain. There are details in the background of episodes that the fandom has spent years cataloging. Frames where the void is briefly visible outside a window. Moments in crowd scenes where characters appear who should not be there yet. Dialogue that sounds like a throwaway joke and turns out to be a specific callback to something 3 seasons earlier. There are fan theories about Principal Brown's species, about whether Mr. Small's amnesia is truly total, about the specific mechanism by which Molly was erased, and whether it could be reversed. Now there are questions about the Shady Man's origin, about whether the void has a geography, about what the live-action segments in episodes like The Shell's various transitions actually represent. There are 47 unanswered questions about Rob's arc in the Revival series. There are questions about whether Baukelay's unrevealed theory is something he will ever share or whether it is the kind of secret that dies with its keeper. There are questions about whether Elmore was designed or evolved, whether the rules of the world were set before the characters arrived or emerged from their presence. There is the question of what the first thing was that the void ever erased, and whether that erasure set the pattern for everything that followed. And whether whoever or whatever was erased first is the key to understanding why the void works the way it does. There is the question of what the amazing world of Gumball is really about at the deepest possible level, stripped of all the comedy and visual innovation and meta-awareness. And I think the answer, the one that has been sitting underneath everything we have talked about tonight, is this. It is about the radical, stubborn, against-all-odds act of choosing to be alive. Not just existing, not just persisting, not just filling space until the void gets around to noticing you. Choosing actively to be present in your life, to be real with the people around you, to love things even when you know they could be taken from you, to be interesting and funny and strange and genuine in a universe that might be watching you, judging whether you are worth keeping. That is what Gumball does every day without knowing he is doing it. That is what Darwin does, what Nicole does, what Penny chose to do when she took the shell off. That is what Rob does when he falls into the void for the second time so that other people can keep existing in a world that does not know he is protecting it. The void is real. The static is always at the edge of the frame. And the characters of Elmore keep going anyway, making each other laugh, making each other angry, loving each other imperfectly and persistently, being as alive as the format allows. Which, as it turns out, is more than enough to hold the static back. The signal holds. Good night. If you made it this far, genuinely, thank you. Thank you for lying in the dark with this. Thank you for caring about a blue cat and a talking goldfish and a banana who can paint the future. These characters have been living in people's minds for over a decade now, and the fact that they are still there, still being thought about at 2 in the morning by people like you, is proof that the void has not won. If you enjoyed tonight's journey through Elmore, please subscribe to Watterson Lore. Hit the like button if the mysteries kept you company. And drop a comment telling me which mystery hit you hardest, which one you are going to be thinking about tomorrow. I read every single one. The next time we go deep, we will go deeper. But for now, Elmore is quiet. The static is just background noise. And somewhere in a yellow house on a street that is a photograph of somewhere real. On a blue cat and a goldfish and their improbable family are asleep. Sleep well.